everyone. Welcome back to our music and travel podcast with Musical Getaways. I'm here with Rocío, and today we're talking about.
Hello.
Hello, Rocío. We're talking
Hi.
about something a little bit unique today. It's not 100% about music, but it does affect music. It does affect musicians, and maybe some of you have seen the news recently about tourism in Spain, and sustainable tourism, things like that. So I'm going to let Rocio start it off, and we're going to have a little discussion about sustainability in tourism and the pluses, the good and the bad about tourism.
Yes, a very, very controversial topic here. And I think it's very important for us, of course, to talk about this. And I would like to start by quoting a publication from El Confidencial. This is a newspaper from Spain, it's a digital newspaper, because this specific article reflects on the growth of tourism phobia, this situation that's living some Spanish cities, and the impact this has had on international media. The article is titled, let me read it, Barcelona's tourism phobia seen from the US. I felt guilty and changed my plans. So this article um, discusses how the Spaniards are becoming, not all Spaniards, of course, but some Spaniards are becoming increasingly fed up with tourism in their cities, in their country. And I would like to share also some points from this article. For example, here they say that over tourism is causing problems in many Spanish cities and coastal areas, leading to resentment among locals. Residents complain about noise, litter, and the high cost of living driven by tourism. There are also concerns about the loss of local culture and traditions. Also, the Spanish government is under pressure to address the negative impacts of mass tourism, and some cities have implemented measures like restricting tourist numbers and short-term rentals. Um, However, tourism is a vital part of the Spanish economy. Finding the right balance between managing tourism flows and maintaining economic benefits is challenging. And then experts suggest that more sustainable tourism models focus on quality over quantity are needed to reduce friction between tourists and locals in Spain, right? So, in summary, what we can understand from this article is while the country is grappling with the downsides of over tourism and searching for ways to promote more sustainable tourism practices, tourism is still a crucial part of a Spanish economy, right? So it's in these specific kind of situations we're talking about sustainable tourism is not just empty words. It's an idea that urgently needs to be implemented, right? And need to be understood in an accurate way, let's say, because we're saying all the time sustainable tourism, let's do a sustainable tourism, but what this mean in general, what's this concept? So it's not just a trend. Sustainable tourism is a philosophy of travel, right? Because this means that we seek to reduce the ecological footprint that can cause this over tourism or the massive arrival of people to a specific town or city. And of course, we want to preserve the cultural authenticity of any visited location or destination, because that's why we are traveling there, right? So when we talk about these fancy words in some way, that's what it means, and that's what we look for in some way. So in other words, we're talking about these measures that must be taken or implemented to continue taking advantage of the economic growth that tourism and travel industry represent, but preventing an avalanche of excessive consumers, let's say, from ending up ruining the lives or assets of local people, right? So for example, I can understand in some way the concerns of many Spaniards. We're talking about this specific case because there are a bunch of examples where tourists damage the material heritage of the cities they visited, right? So, for example, I would like to talk about a very recent scandal, one of the most recent scandals that involves a tourist in Florence. This case is not in Spain, it's in Florence, but well, Florence is very close to it, it's just in Italy. So it's a girl, she was drunk, she climbed on a statue, very important monument, and she started to hug it and adopted like a provocative position, simulating she was having sexual relations with the statue. And of course, this caused a great indignation among the Florentine community. And they consider this act as a lack of respect for their cultural symbols. And this is just one example why this tourism phobia is growing in some city. This specific act I just mentioned may be quite controversial in some way, but we can't deny that this girl, maybe she wasn't thinking in a respectful way towards those people or towards that culture she was visiting. And also, I want to say here that this is not a common behavior, of course. I think that the most common behavior in general from travelers is a very respectful attitude to the culture, to the people in general, but we can avoid to think about these specific examples, and it's ruining this beautiful industry that tourism is in. At this point, then I would like to talk about the position of Musical Getaways and Havana Music Tours regarding the travel philosophy that maybe underpins our project. So, Chaz, please.
So it's such a interesting thing happening. We saw recently that people were squirting water guns at people in Barcelona, and maybe people are a little hesitant about going to Spain now. But this isn't just in Spain. I mean, this is happening all over the world. I mean, we see a lot of focus going towards short-term rentals because it's believed to be taking up spaces that could help with housing issues. So, I mean, there's a lot of hotels. And we try to take a dynamic approach here. Like, for example, what we do in Cuba could be totally different than Spain, right? Like it's very much a support for the local economy. And of course, booking someone's short-term rental like Airbnb or whatever, does support people. It does support people who maybe have an apartment and they have an extra room. And so it's kind of complicated how that would affect that part of the economy. I mean, a lot of people have built up their accounts on Airbnb, and they really rely on that income. I know you even do experiences on Airbnb. I don't know how that's going to affect the experiences. I hope it doesn't. But like in Cuba, it's totally acceptable to go rent a casa particular. I mean, they've been having, of course, casa particulares in Cuba. I mean, since I guess the 90s, right? Like before Airbnb came about. So Cuba, in one sense, is like sort of all open. Like they want more and more and more tourism because they haven't really hit their limits yet. Arguably, they did hit their limits under the Obama administration whenever there was the reopening. Many people I talked to, it was like shoulder to shoulder, and that's when I first went too. So in Spain, these are these like historic places where, like you were talking about, like statues and museums and like old places that really need to be preserved. And as much as we may think that people have some sort of common sense for respect of where they're traveling to, I mean, that's just kind of like, culture, respecting culture 101 is like, don't touch statues. Don't do anything that it says. Don't touch these things. Don't sit on them. Don't, and I think that it's just kind of common sense, and everywhere I go, I want to respect these destinations and the local people and things like that. So I kind of want to start with like an extreme of that. And a country that I haven't been to yet, but I know a lot about, and I plan to go there eventually, is a country called Bhutan. And for a long time, they were cut off from the rest of the world. They didn't even have like TV or internet. They were very cautious and conservative with maintaining their culture and preserving their culture. So when they did open up tourism, they thought about that. They were very proactive in their thinking to avoid such situations like this. And actually in Bhutan, I mean, you could work with an agency like us, but we would have to work with a government DMC, destination management company, and you have to go through the government and be on a organized tour. You can't go freely around Bhutan. You can't just walk around and go look at the museums on your own or whatever they have. You have to use a government tour, which I think is an interesting perspective. And of course that seems extreme for all of us and myself who like to freely travel and just go learn about things on our own. To be forced to go on a tour is like a whole nother perspective, but it's worked. From my understanding is that they have been able to control the tourism, and it's expensive. They kind of make the price, I think it's like $200 or $300 per person per day or something, maybe more, maybe it's more now. But it was a way to kind of, make sure that they limit how much tour, because a lot of people will be like, I don't want to go there because of that. And so it cuts back on how many tourists can come. And if you say like most of Europe is just a free for all, you can just, fly to Amsterdam or fly to Iceland, and you can just do whatever you want. You can make your own itinerary. But I think that might be somewhat of an issue. Not that people shouldn't be able to freely to be free tourists. I just think that some sort of organization is better than no organization, and that could be like tests or certifications or contracts that you sign, with like your customs form when you enter in and say, hey, I will respect the country. I'm not going to do anything illegal or anything like that. And I think they are moving towards like limiting tour group sizes and stuff like that. When I started this company, Musical Getaways and Havana Music Tours, I already thought about sustainable tourism from the very beginning, because I went on some of these tours that have like 30 or 40 people on a bus. And, I used to work on cruise ships, and the cruise ships that I worked on, they packed them out. I mean, it took away the enjoyment of like, whatever experience you're trying to do, whether you're going to dinner or you're trying to watch a band or go to the theater. It's just packed. And it's like the ships that they have, like they really try to make sure that they put as many people on there as possible. And there's some safety concerns with that too. I won't get too deep into that, but a lot of these boats don't have enough lifeboats. They have life rafts and lifeboats, so they actually don't have enough for like these are holding like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, we can go way back for that. I mean, they're much safer now. Don't get me wrong. I'm not, but the thing is that let's say that a cruise ship arrives in Barcelona. There's a lot of short excursions where I imagine there's a lot of buses showing up to pick up a bunch of people. Big buses use a lot of fuel. The good thing about a small group tour, which is what we do, up to 12 people, is that we can use a more economic van. A lot of these new Sprinter and Mercedes vans, they have 6-cylinder engines that are way more economical now. And I think we're very close. They already exist, but I think we're very close to seeing a transition through transportation companies around the world to using e-vehicles. So I think we'll start to have, and of course there's some debates about that and stuff too. But in general, I think small tourism, like small group tourism, is the answer. And I know that's I'm kind of biased with that because that's what we do. But that's why I did it this way. I didn't enjoy, getting in a bus with a bunch of people, not being able to talk to the tour guide. Then you jump out, and it's just a giant crowd on the side of the street. I've seen this in Spain. I was on a bicycle tour one time, and the tour guide kind of didn't make us park our bikes in the right place, so we put them in the middle of the sidewalk. And these local folks, they came and they're like, hey, what, like, got really mad at the tour guide because, like, why did you park your bikes right here in the middle of the, and that's just one thing that I've seen in Spain. I can only imagine, how many other things happen. I mean, you're living there, so you can see these things more often. But it's like organizing it better. This was kind of a free tour. This is one tour company, which is important for the economy. which is important for people to learn culture. I mean, we were on an educational tour. I mean, it was a bicycle tour, but we were learning about things in Spain, history and landmarks and things like that, which I think is also important for people to broaden their horizons of what they know about other languages and cultures and people. So like travel is essential. It's just like, how do we find the balance between this free for all, like anybody can book a plane ticket right now and go to anywhere, and at any given time it can be just too many people, especially in Europe in the summer. I think there can be just way too many people. I remember in Amsterdam, my sister and I flew into Amsterdam. Maybe it was like end of May, so it was kind of like right before this rush in June. And when we got there, it wasn't that many people there, And then our flight coming back like 2 weeks later, we went to Spain, went to Belgium, France, and then our trip back, we went back to Amsterdam because that's where our flight was from. But when I got back, it was like early mid-June, and it was just like the streets were full. Like I can only imagine being a local, and I live like there's my local bar that I like to go to, and I work over there, and I gotta navigate all these tourists in the street. So I understand both sides. I think travel is essential for people and their minds and their ability to understand and educate themselves. But I also think that tourism is essential for local economies. So it's like, where is the tourism dollars going? You have local restaurants, you have boutique hotels, you have, you're doing a really cool experience in Madrid for coffee and learning about coffee and respecting coffee and understanding coffee. And then, there's musicians. There's musicians that are the flamenco dancers and the flamenco musicians playing in the tablaos that for the most part we know in a lot of places like Madrid and Barcelona and Seville, like they're playing for a lot of tourists, and the tourists are paying money and directly affecting the income of these musicians. So, I mean, and there's also flamenco schools like in Seville that they rely on tourists who want to come and study flamenco dance in its authenticity in Seville. So, we can't just say, hey, cut off tourism, as much as, maybe there are people in Spain and other places who are working in different sectors and they don't understand how that would affect the economy. But, yeah, maybe there should be more regulations on group sizes. There should be more regulations on cruise ships. I think cruise ships are very pollutant. They dump a lot of things in the water. They use a lot of fuel, and they have a lot of food waste and things like that. I think small group travel, I know I'm biased about it, but I think small group travel is a sustainable way to go into restaurants, to stay in hotels, to support the local economy, to hire local tour guides, to hire smaller transportation than just big buses. So I think there's the Bhutan way, which is like very extreme. You have to go through the government. I'm not saying there shouldn't be government licensing and regulation, which we do deal with in many different countries, and I'm completely fine for that. I'm for more regulation, but we can't just cut off the support system of the economy. I don't think that that's the right answer.
Look, I completely agree with you. I think a selectivity could be like a key. Like, what's the motivation behind your trip or your travel? What's your intention? Why you want to travel here? What you want to do in that country? So the government should work in that way. Like, what kind of people we want to visit us, because this is what we want to offer. We are open to offer our best thing from our culture, our food, or music, or beaches, or nature. So we really appreciate having people that they want to be respectful with this. They want to enjoy this. They are open to receive all this and taken for good, right? So I think as musical getaways or Havana Music Tour, we feel proud in some way, because that's what we offer, this concept, this philosophy. And we know the people who choose us is because they agree with this vision about traveling and trips. And I would like to talk, for example, how as tour leaders we contribute to this philosophy and to this sustainable tourism. Because, for example, one of the most common ideas about how to make a sustainable tourism is supporting the local communities, right? We all agree about this. But I would like to reflect a little bit on certain notions of what many people understand by supporting local producers. I would like to bring up like a delicate topic about this, because sometimes supporting local communities could be exploitation of stereotypes. And I will conduct this idea because I want to talk at the end how important it is to choose a right tour guide or tour company, if you really want to enjoy a real culture. Because what this means, for example, uh, we know that a lot of local people, not a lot, some local people, let me fix my words a little bit. Some local people who want to take advantage of certain cultural stereotypes, then they exported or established in the collective imaginary. So, and they just want to simply profit from it, and ultimately it's not based on an honest or conscious practice from that activity. For example, let me explain a little bit this more. People who travel to Cuba and they buy, for example, low quality native products, let's say a cigar, for example, at luxury prices. Or people who travel to Spain and maybe they pay for a mediocre show because they really don't know what they're buying or what they're paying for, right? So I don't want to get involved like this is good or is bad in itself, because of course in any case you are financially supporting someone from that community. But I would like to reflect and how also this encourages some lazy attitudes towards cultural practice. So in other words, misinformation means that some tourists are supporting people who only want to make easy money by taking advantage of stereotypes, while then the true artists or creators or artisans remains anonymous, and they can suffer from little economic support for their work because nobody knows about them. So this is where our work as tour leaders, now our work based on the commitment with the authenticity, as you mentioned before, with talent, with real effort, with the real intention to preserve cultural practices, takes on even more value in some way. If you go by your own, if you don't go with the local expert, like us, for example, I don't want to sound like arrogant about this or nothing similar. I just want to acknowledge what we do, you know? So it's very easy to fall into the stereotype trap. So if you as traveler, you are a true enthusiast for culture and good work, and in art in general, you will want to go to where that real culture is, right? The one is alive. And you maybe can talk about this because you've been a traveler as well. So when you travel to Cuba the first time, or to Colombia or to Spain, you want to find that authenticity in Cuba. So you can go by your own, you can fall in this trap, or you can choose a more sustainable way of traveling and trusting with expert. And what you think about that, for example?
Exactly. I think that for one example would be like if you used Airbnb, or I think sometimes booking.com also has like bed and breakfast, or rooms, shared rooms, things like that. I think that when Airbnb first came out, and of course this is not, I don't know if we're gonna get in trouble for talking about Airbnb, but I like Airbnb. I use Airbnb. You work with Airbnb. You probably have a very close relationship with Airbnb when you did all your experiences in Cuba. And I might, real quick, Rocio was, I think, one of the only people in Cuba who had all the music experiences on Airbnb at some point, which you still have some. You still have your team, part of our team actually, working there in Cuba with these experiences, which absolutely 100% supports when you were working in Cuba, as well as your family. I know your mom rents out some bunk beds, and you have Amalia working and doing your experiences, which is a huge support for her and for the local economy. But there's a big difference with like Airbnb like stays from going and staying in someone's house and supporting like a working class family that has a room for rent, and that you could like maybe buy their breakfast or things like that. Maybe leave them a tip because they helped you out with some tourism activities or booking things through their friends, which supports their network and their economy. Versus what I think has happened is that a lot of investors and big corporate entities have bought up a lot of like luxury places. So like maybe if you go stay in some luxury condo in Madrid, overlooking the city, I mean, maybe it's beautiful, it's great, but like maybe you're not really supporting like the working class people, and so I think it started this as this, and it still exists. I think you have to be more conscious of what you're booking. If you want to book a nice luxury place, I'm all for it, but I think maybe we should use hotels for that instead of entire places and on Airbnb that could be used for housing and things like that. So on that flip side, I think that going in and supporting someone who has an extra room or something like that, that's totally different. And kind of to your point about like, who are you supporting, what are you doing, being a little more strategic about, if you just go on TripAdvisor and you look at the top 10, I mean, there could be some important and good stuff there, but analyze it, like, share your economic support with a more diverse audience when you go travel. I think that would make people more happy too, because what happens is, and this is with any industry, is that there starts to become sort of a macro entity of tourism. What I would say, like cruise ships, and I don't mind talking bad about cruise ships. I don't think that's the best type of tourism. I mean, I'm sure there's like small luxury cruise liners that I'm sure they support different things, but I know about the big cruise liners, and I think that they get tied into these, macro tourism sectors. And when the people are on the ships, for example, they don't know about maybe your experience. A small percentage of them will. They'll be like, hey, I'm going to Madrid. Let me look on Airbnb experiences, or let me look up, if there's some music experiences, and they may find us. But otherwise, I think there's this kind of pull, or there's just a lot of marketing money going towards macro tourism. And those could be owned by big corporations and things like that, versus, supporting a local tour guide who's really small, but maybe they have a degree in history and they have a unique perspective to share. And I think that's what we do as Musical Getaways too, is that, we try to bring up working class musicians that are great, because as musicians, we come from a musical perspective, and we're looking for students who just graduated or are trying to make their careers or teaching. We try to get people to study with them and support them, and put together private concerts and private events with musicians that you may not know about, but that we think and we know are top tier, like the best musicians, but they're not maybe working in the tourism industry. They're maybe not working at that tablao that is mostly just for tourists, and nothing against those. I think that there's great musicians everywhere, but we try to dig a little deeper, and how can we put more roots into the local economy and support support the more of the working class people, and directly support people. So I think that's everything from like maybe choosing a boutique hotel that's owned by, they only have one, they're not like a conglomerate that has hotels all over the world. I mean, your money's not going to, and we do that as a tour company. We try to find boutique hotels or small hotels, nice hotels, but hotels that support the local economy. And this is, sometimes you don't know, but we do try to do a little bit of research to see like, hey, is this someone living in Spain? Is this, the local workers, the local transportation company, all those things. We have to analyze all of it. And I think maybe when you book a tour group like ours, you don't really have to think about all that stuff, because if you know that we are supporting sustainable tourism, and we're supporting local musicians and local communities and economy, then you can just trust us to do that. And once you go on the tour, you can talk with all these people. You can see like, hey, who are you? What are you doing? And you can have those more intimate connections with things that macro tourism, aren't going to provide. And I'll say another thing about this. I think that it's the responsibility of, whether or not you're going on a tour or not. I mean, I know we do this because if you book our tour, we send out important information, what to expect, cultural expectations, money, customs, what not to do, what to do, things like that. And we do that because we want people to respect not only our fellow travelers, but all of our tour guides and tour leaders and musicians and every experience that we offer and the hotels that we work with. We don't want a client that's going to not respect the hotel that we keep working with. That looks bad on us. So we try to prepare people for what it means to be a respectful and sustainable traveler with us. But I think that everybody who works in tourism has that responsibility, whether it's the airline, whether it's the local tour guide. I think that folks need to send out some messaging. Whether you're booking a casa room or whatever on Airbnb, I mean, it's up to that host to share information like, look, you're coming to Barcelona. It's all about sustainable tourism here. Be respectful of our, statues, be respectful of our museum, be respectful of our people and our restaurants and our sidewalks. And, maybe the government, with this regulatory body can give those recommendations of what to say, and maybe even require it in the licensing. Like, look, you can have a license to rent out your room, but, you need to, make sure that your travelers are well informed. Put a little pamphlet in their room on their bed when they check in. That's like, hey, do's and don'ts in Barcelona. Don't people don't like this. Don't jump on statues. Don't just don't touch anything unless you're invited to. So yeah, I think there's some shared responsibility. If people want to keep working in tourism, then they need to inform their travelers. And I think this is like the airlines too. The airlines don't send out any information about that. They'll send out, like, if you have a customs form or if you're required to have vaccines or something, but they never send out, not that I've seen, and I've been on most all of these flights, they rarely send out something about how to act or how to respect the culture of where you're going. So I think there's some responsibility of the tourism sector to step up and educate people more, whether it's just a host and actually, if they ended up hearing it from multiple people, like somebody books a flight to Spain and then they have an email that came from the airline company about how to respect tourism and cultural, having some things to read and maybe some videos and interviews and whatever, any sort of content that helps people prepare themselves. And then again, when they book your experience and on Airbnb or your room, or the hotel even has like a thing, everybody needs to kind of, because I think people learn things when you repeat the information. If they hear it like 5 times, they'll be like, look, we love Barcelona. We want to visit Barcelona. We want to see all these things. But like, I think they're pretty serious about us respecting the local community and the artifacts and the history and the monuments and things like that. So yeah, that's my take on it. I think that it's something that we've already been preparing for, and I've already thought about it from the beginning. There's things outside of our control, like airplanes using jet fuel. I mean, we know United Airlines is working on how they can use water to fly planes. I mean, it's just a matter of time before, as far as support, the environment part, before that part becomes better and better. I mean, using electronic vehicles that are, powered by natural sources, using airplanes that are powered by solar or by water, things like that. So, that's not something we can control, but we will be very quickly to adapt to it once it becomes available. As soon as it's safe and we know it works, United puts out new planes or whoever puts out planes that run on water or solar, and they're safe and everything looks good, then we're going to use those things. We're going to use all the things we can to create sustainable tourism, because at the end of the day, there might be these debates about these things, but I think that tourism is a net positive for people, for their minds, for their education, and for their experiences. I mean, I think travel in the world has changed my life. It's given me so many insights about how other people live, and what's normal for them and what's not normal. And it's sort of, and I think actually, who said this really good was Trevor Noah.
Travel for me is a humbling experience if you do it, because it will show you that the world is bigger than your world. It'll also show you that every idea you have that you accept as dogma is in fact just an idea. And so when you travel, you start to realize that most of the rules we learn as human beings are just societal structural ideas that have been imparted on us by our parents or our forefathers. But when you go somewhere else, they're like, no, we just don't do that, and I think that that's humbling. And I think it's also informative because it tells you and it teaches you that the way you think the world isn't. It's just the way your world is.
I think is that the choice or the way, the tourism itself is not the problem, not the tourist or not the place where you are at the moment. Is how you want to practice that trip or that vacation or wherever. It's more about thinking this relation between host and guest. You want to be a good host. So if as a Spaniard in a city in Spain, I want to create the right conditions to receive more people and to offer the best, but also I want to be a good guest, so I want to be respectful. I would bring my goodwill, my knowledge, my love, and whatever. So if we all as community we think in this way, like this is a relationship and I want to be a good guest, and or I want to be a good host, because we can find the problem in both sides. We can find people who don't want to be a good guest, they don't care about that, they're not thinking in a respectful way. And some people, they don't want to be good hosts, they just want to take advantage or whatever, or making easy money. And the problem in Barcelona, for example, is in some way this: some people, it's not they don't have a free room. Some people don't have a free room or an extra place, whatever. They are taking places and were originally working as a local bar or as a local cafeteria or wherever, and they are making a weird a room without window, without anything, just to rent and to get more money, because we have a high demand of people traveling to Barcelona. So this person is not being a good host in some way neither, right? This person is just trying to get more money in an easy way, and they don't care about the impact, how they are affecting their community, or how they are offering a regular service to travelers, to visitors, because they just want to make money. People is requesting a room in Barcelona. I will create something here and I will take this from my community because I want to make more money. So if we think in this way, like I want to be a good host and I want to be a good guest, as I think Musical Getaways, we used to work in that way, and we are really aware about all this problem, and we don't want to affect nobody in the cities we visit. Like we don't want to affect nobody in Cuba or Spain or Brazil or Colombia. This is not just for the tourism industry. This is happening with any other industry, like food or medicine or wherever. When people don't have ethical standards for your behavior, when you don't have that, then your practices are wrong and being bad for someone else. And this, what I say, this is happening in any industry, not just tourism. So who we want to be and how we want to act regarding this situation, that's the key, that's the point. And I think as Musical Getaways and Havana Music Tours, we have this commitment. And as I said before, I'm very happy the package we offer, our proposal, is on tune with all this mindset. So people who go to our website and pay attention and feel interest in our packages because they agree with this way of thinking in some way.
Yes, all those things as far as like having diversity, being anti-racist, anti-bigotry, accepting the LGBTQ community. Us as a company, we want to be accepting of anybody and everybody. We ask that everyone's being mutually respectful too. So, if someone has an issue with the LGBTQ plus community, really they're not invited to our tour. We want to create a community of people who are open-minded to everything and everybody, no matter of race or religion or anything like that. So we're very much trying to bring people together and create bridges. And we're doing that through small group travel, through, we cap our groups at 12 people. We try to use small sustainable vans or microbuses that are on fuel. We try to support local aspects of the economy in every place we go that are a little bit off the beaten path, or we're not bringing a big bus of 40 people into a restaurant. We're bringing 12 people into music venues and restaurants, but we're trying to support the places that not only are important to see and like iconic because they're the top 10 on TripAdvisor, but mix in a little bit more of that. We create the diversity with what we spend too. So we're spending money supporting a different level of musician or different music venue that you would normally go to and things like that. So we're always trying to improve that and make that better. And at the end of the day, we're open-minded to feedback and criticism, and a lot of our clients have. I mean, we maintain 5-star reviews on TripAdvisor, but I always encourage each one of our clients, how can we make things better? And we're never perfect, but we are very conscious of it. We're very much in tune with what people are telling us, not only what local people are telling us, but our clients, so what they're noticing, conversations we're having with musicians and with hotels and with local operations managers and transport companies. So I think that little bit by little bit we can make things better, and we can continue to have tourism that is sustainable and does not make people mad. I mean, there's always going to be somebody who's mad about something, but at the end of the day, sharing your culture and your country with other people, I think, is so cool. I know that you have a lot of pride with that. So does Yami, my wife, about sharing Cuba. And that's how we all started. That's how we started. We started with Cuba. We're also passionate about Cuban music and things like that we've branched off to, like, oh, we really love Brazilian music. We really love Colombian music and Spanish music and flamenco. And, for anyone who wants to appreciate and support the local economies, that's what our tours are for. And what we have coming up, I have to mention, is we have our Andalusian flamenco tour, which is very much a deep dive into flamenco in Seville and southern Spain. And then we have the Barcelona Jazz Fest. These are like a once a year, with a Biennale for the flamenco is every other year. But the Barcelona Jazz Fest is only once per year. I mean, it's a big difference between our one tour. We only do maybe a few tours in each one of these cities or destinations per year, whereas some macro tour companies may be doing tours every week. And I'm not saying that that's bad. It's if they're doing it in a sustainable way and they're supporting the local economy and being respectful of everything. But these are very special, unique tours. If you're interested in flamenco music, Andalusia, southern Spain, and tapas, good music, good, like, authentic flamenco music. I mean, you can see flamenco music all over Spain, but for the Biennale, it's special. There's like unique artisan presentations, and the things we've seen in the past. I mean, some of the things in the theater are unique. You're not going to see that in the tablao. The Barcelona Jazz Fest is an international jazz fest that brings it's going to bring international artists in to play, and it lasts a whole month, but we pick a special week that we can showcase that. So you're not only going to see Barcelona and the beauty of it, but you're going to see it with a small group and in a sustainable way. And I don't think people are going to squirt us with water guns. And if they do, we'll just go change our clothes and keep going. You know what I mean? So that's all I have to say about it. And I think that we're always going to be responsible to do the best we can to respect every country that we work in, and the locals and the economy and the government regulations.